I remember when I was 17 and a woman asked me, "Are you saved?" I didn't have any idea what she meant. I was like, saved? What the heck is saved? The best thing I could think through was maybe she means, am I like my grandmother? And I adamantly told her no, because I'm not like my grandmother. I do hip-hop music. It's more than music, it's actually a culture. It's the lens by which you see the world. They talking reckless, what you expecting from the walking dead. Man, it's okay to be bold, passionate. It's masculinity. It's what I do. I used to sneak and watch rap videos in my grandmother's house. I was too little. She wouldn't have let me watch them. And I would sit there and watch them, and I would just marvel. Late at night, I found people to look up to. There were no Barack Obamas, there were no Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's. They'd all passed away, and so I had Tupac.
I've been trapped since birth, cautious cause I'm cursed. The fantasies of my family in a hearse. And they say it's the white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here.
I wasn't the greatest athlete, definitely wasn't a scholarly student. I wasn't the toughest guy, but being able to rap was my source of significance. I grew up wrestling with significance because my father and my mother weren't together. Never met my father. He became a drug addict and kind of let his life crumble. I felt like my dad was this piece of my life that I needed to have to feel like I was somebody. Having a single mother who worked a lot, she just had to entrust me in the care of family members and different people a lot of times. I experienced abuse as a kid. I experienced neglect and different kind of things. And so I was just wanting real significance, and I didn't feel like I was gonna get it trying to be this manicured, good, all-around student and person. The people I looked up to were gangsters. My uncle, I remember him, showing me a gun, and I just wanted to be like those guys. So I took a BB gun and stood in the middle of the street and pointed it at a car, and just saw the lady panic and freak out. And for me, that was just fun. I didn't have anything to do. I wanted to be back in the inner city. I wanted to be, doing criminal activity. So I just kept rebelling, and I kept doing worse. In drugs, 16, fighting all the time. Got arrested in high school for stealing. He was just like, man, what are you gonna do with your life? Got put on a gang list. I remember thinking like, man, I guess I'm supposed to care. Went from drugs to drinking to I'm a wreck, partying to I don't fit anywhere. I'm just this misfit of a person. My mother was like, you just need to read your Bible. And I remember ripping the pages out of the Bible and throwing it on the floor. And I said, I don't want this Bible. I just couldn't wrap my hands around this being true, this being real. My grandmother was a Christian. I would have to go to church with her. It was like older people. It was old people. So for me, church wasn't about God, and church was for them. It wasn't for me. It's probably not real. Probably just something people use as a crutch. I think as the emptiness started to get more profound, when I had to drink more, smoke more, find another woman, I was really, really, really in a dark place.
5:46 in the morning, tossing and turning, chest burning. Sermons in my head keep reoccurring. Having visions in my head of a kid crying at the feet of the Father for all the wrong things that he did. Now I'm sweating in my sheets, can't sleep cause my mind keep telling me I'm 6 feet deep. Don't remind me, even though I'm still alive, I can't tell. The way I'm living my life, I feel I'm going to hell.
I got invited by a friend to a conference, and I'm really just more excited about being in a big city. I'm more excited about there being girls. I'm more excited about just what the city brings. I'm not really concerned about the conference. So I get to the conference, and I see guys who have been shot from being in gangs. I see, girls who were extremely promiscuous in the past. I see rappers, I see dancers, I see singers, I see people who came from the same background I came from, and they still embodied who they were culturally, but they were all in love with Jesus. And I'd never seen that before. And then I saw another group, and they were sold out for Jesus, and they were rapping, and you heard about it in their songs, and I was just like, what in the world? And as I listened to the lyrics, I was like, man, I don't know this. I don't understand this God they're talking about. And then finally, someone got up and said, do you know you've been bought with a price? And they told me the story of Jesus on Golgotha and him carrying the cross and him bearing all of my sin, all of my lying, all of my cheating, all of my escapades, all of my drinking and drugging, and put it on his own back. And he said, I was bought with a price. And it made me think, man, I'm like, somebody thinks I'm significant enough to die for me. Somebody thinks I'm significant enough to climb up this mountain with this cross on his back and take nails in his wrists and his feet for me. I remember articulating like, God, get me out of this, just don't kill me. Do whatever you gotta do to get me out of this, just don't kill me. I was driving down the highway and I turned too quick and lost control of the wheel. My car flipped over again and again. The roof caved in, windshield caved in, no seatbelt, glass everywhere. My glasses that I had on were molded like kind of into the frame of the car, and I didn't have a scratch. That was it. I said, I get it. Called up my friends who I knew were living for Jesus, and I said, we gotta make this happen. I'm coming home. I saw change happening. I spent a lot of time searching for father figures. Just saw the evidence. And God has shown me that, ultimately He's my father. It drives me to keep pressing. I started volunteering at a juvenile detention center. And some of those songs that I had written in my darkest times when I was crying out to God, I would do for Him. And you just see Him sitting there weeping. And time after time, they keep requesting it. Can you do that song again? Can you do that song again? I just need that to hold on to. I need something that's gonna remind me that I need Jesus. It hit me like, this is what I wanna do. I wanna use music to offer hope and encouragement to people.
I was created by God, but I didn't want to be like Him, I want to be Him. The Jack Sparrow of my Caribbean. I remember the first created being and how He shifted the blame on His dame for fruit He shouldn't have eaten. And now look at us all out of Eden, wearing designer fig leaves by Louis Vuitton, make believing. But God sees through my foolish pride and that I'm weak like Adam, another victim of Lucifer's lies. But then in steps Jesus. All men were created to lead, but we needed somebody to lead us. More than a teacher, but somebody to buy us back from the darkness. You could say He redeemed us.
I've learned to stay close to my source of significance, to my source of worth. And that's God. My name is Lecrae, and I am second.
Yeah, you can give it up for Lecrae. As you can tell, we are doing things a little different this week. Last week, you heard from Jeff, and it was also kind of a long, intense one, so we wanted to shake things up a little bit. This will be the shortest message you ever hear me give. Some of you are like, yes, I came on the right week for that. So it's hopefully we want to just intro the series. Lee will be teaching next week, and we're talking about I Am Second. And I hope that is something that has become a part of your life. Like Lecrae was talking about, for him, at first he was living all for himself, trying to fill his own desires and his own needs and wants. And then something changed. A transformation took place, and he realized it's not all about me. And this is kind of a phrase I love to use. In my house, when my kids were younger, I would quote this to Jada and many of the other kids time after time. I would say, it's not all about you, Jada, okay? I know you think it is, but in this house, it's not all about you. And as a father, I would have such pride because sometimes I would hear the kids playing and Kaylee would be like, it's not all about you, Jada, remember? It's not all about you. And then Adam would like say it to both of them. And I'm like, yes, this is catching on. So this is, and they aren't here today, so I can talk all about them. This is something that is just such a part, I think, of our Christian lives. As we start to really understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus, we realize it's not all about us. And I realize some of you are there and you're already starting to live that out. And I also realize that there's some of you in this room that you haven't figured that out yet. You're still kind of like Lecrae, pre-conversion, still trying to figure it out, testing things, trying to find fulfillment and stuff, and you haven't really figured out the secret to life, and that's kind of what this series is about, that's I'm second. And it's not about trying to fill our own desires, it's letting God transform us, and then we start living for God and others. And that's kind of what this is about. We want you guys to realize that it really isn't all about you. And Cesar has a kind of a funny commercial. We're just going to show this clip real quick if he's got it. And just to show you kind of like how silly and, I don't know, just like one area. Marketers are always trying to tell us you need more of this, you need the best of this, because it's all about you, and this is a good example of it.
I am delighted we could share in the serenity and joy of this beautiful day as we come together to celebrate the commitment of these.
Would you mind moving your enormous phone?
You mean the enormously awesome galaxy?
Search One Trick Pony.
Aren't you a little young to have an iPhone?
You want to go?
Sheep, copy bots.
Autocorrect this.
Is there an app for that?
Search karate.
You think if they knew about the Nokia Lumia, they'd stop fighting all the time?
I don't know. I think they kind of like fighting.
The Windows Phone Nokia Lumia 920. Engadget's Reader's Choice Smartphone of the Year.
Marketers try to do to you guys all the time is they try to tell you, you need this. And really, if you think about it, that's what malls are for. Malls, I mean, some of you haven't figured this out yet. They aren't just for hanging out. Malls are for the purpose of making you think you need all that stuff in there. And then you're like, oh, I need this, and I need this, and I need this. That's what malls are there for. Teenagers think they're just there to hang out. No, they're marketed towards you guys to get you to spend your money because they realize you guys are billion-dollar consumers every year, multiple billions of dollars. And so that's what commercials, all these commercials are coming at you. They're coming at my generation, but they think in my generation we've at least figured it out a little bit, but they think you guys haven't figured it out. So what they want you to do is you need this to be happy. You need this car. You need this. You need all this stuff because it's all about you. And that's why I want to do a series on I Am Second, to get us to think about stuff in a totally different perspective, that it isn't all about us, that really, it's about God first, and it's about living for others. And when you do those things, it'll completely transform your life. And you'll start to see yourself having a new meaning and purpose when you get up in the morning, because it's not all about you anymore. And you'll start to say, wow, like, I'm starting to see my friends change. I'm starting to see things happen in my life, and it's because you're living for God first and others second, and then finally yourself. So I want to look at a quick passage today. Like I said, this will be one of my quickest messages ever. If you have a Bible or on your phone, Matthew 22. Some of you, this will be a familiar passage, and we'll just break it down real quick as I'm reading the verses. Matthew 22, verse 34. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. And one of them, a lawyer, asked a question to test him. Teacher, what is the great commandment in the law? What is the great commandment in the law? So here's what was going on, just to set the context here. They're trying to trip Jesus up, and they realize that there are 613 different commandments in the Torah. It's a lot of commandments. And so what this lawyer does, he wants to trick Jesus, because you really can't answer this one right. He says, which one, Jesus, is the most important? Of all those 613, because however Jesus answers it, it's kind of going to get him in trouble, because if he emphasizes one, they'll say, oh, you should have really talked about this. And so it's really a trick question. And look how Jesus answers it. He says, and he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Now, some of you that study your Bible a little bit, you recognize this verse. You know what that means. You know that that is the Shema. You might not have known that name, but you know that this is also found in the book of Deuteronomy. And this is one of the most, kind of oldest prayers around. I mean, it predates Christianity. Jews have been praying this prayer for thousands of years. Matter of fact, today, observant Jews, they'll still pray the Shema when they get up and before they go to bed. It's just a sacred prayer in Judaism, and it's found in the scriptures. It's found in the book of Deuteronomy, and it's a prayer that we're all supposed to know because it's about loving God first, putting God first. And then so Jesus starts to answer that. And so this was like a sacred creed. As a child, you would learn to say the Shema at a very young age if you were Jewish. And so they got that. But then look what Jesus does, because he changes the Shema, which was actually really sacrilegious at the time. People would have been like, what is he doing? And look what he says. He says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. They got that. And then look what Jesus does to change it. He says, and this is the first and greatest commandment. And then he adds to it, and he says, the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. So what Jesus does, he takes something that they really know, and then he adds a verse in Leviticus that they maybe didn't know, and he said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is supposed to be your spiritual life, loving God, loving others. That's what our spiritual lives are supposed to be about. And when you think about it, sometimes we make Christianity very complex in the church, when really this is what changes lives in our culture. When we love God with our heart, our soul, our mind, our strength, when we just love God with everything in us, and then when we have that same kind of love for one another. That's what changes people's lives. I was reading a story about this pre-med student, and the pre-med student was really kind of an atheist at the time, just didn't want to have anything to do with God, was in this organic chemistry class, which, do we have any college students in organic chemistry or have taken organic chemistry? Okay, we got one that's qualified for that. Okay, two? Okay, we got a couple back there. Organic chemistry is kind of tough. Well, this atheist student got sick and missed about 10 days of class. And when you're at Cal, University of California, Berkeley, that's a bad thing because it's a tough school as it is. It's organic chemistry. And so there was this Christian in the class that wanted to reach out to this person and knew they weren't a believer and just said, you know what, I'm going to take all their notes, I'm going to get all their assignments, and I'm not only going to give it to them, but I'm going to help them and take as long as it takes because I don't want them to fall behind in this class. And this atheist at the time was so touched by it because he was like, I wouldn't do that for somebody else. Why would somebody do that for me? And it said that within a number of months, even though he had all these doubts, all these questions, there were things that didn't make sense, that one act of kindness transformed his life and made him want to become a follower of Jesus. And I just started to think about that, like in our lives, what if we really got serious about loving God and loving others? What kind of impact could it make on people's lives? And I came across this story, and I think this kind of thing could happen. I think it could happen in your school. I think it could happen in this church. I think it could happen in this community, and I think it could spread to the world. And it was an ordinary winter day in 1961. An MIT meteorologist named Edward Lorenz ran some routine experiments and found some unusual results. He discovered that seemingly tiny and insignificant changes in data could produce huge differences in the final result. And so he was the scientist, meteorologist, and he kind of came up with this theory that was called the butterfly effect. Some of you guys have heard this, or you've seen a really bad movie that had the butterfly effect in it. And here's kind of what it says. Predictability. Does the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil set off a tornado in Texas? Basically, the theory of this, the scientific theory is, can little things that happen across the world come and influence us over here? And can weather patterns that start somewhere, or could something as simple as a butterfly flapping its wings set off a chain reaction that in Texas would produce a tornado? And the conclusion is no, not necessarily. A butterfly wings can't cause a tornado, but they can have these profound impacts all over the globe, just little things. And so what the application I want to make to our lives is that when we do little things as far as loving God and loving others, it has huge results in our lives. And it does things, it creates this ripple effect that's bigger than we could have ever imagined. It's almost the equivalent of a butterfly flapping its wings, and then on the other part of the globe, it causing a tornado. When we do little things for one another and little things for people at school, it makes a huge impact. But then there's also the reverse butterfly effect. When we don't love God and don't love others well, we miss out on so many things that God wants to do. Just so many little things that could have happened, that could have changed a friend's life, never happen, and therefore there isn't that change taking place. And so that's what we want this series to be about. And I want you guys to discuss for a few minutes, because we don't want you just hearing messages here. We don't want you just hearing, oh, good, I had worship and I heard a message. Great. We want you discussing and talking about this. So for the next few minutes, we're going to have some discussion questions up on the screen. If you guys could get with a couple people. And what I'm asking you to do, I know there's all kinds of things you want to talk to each other. There's football games going on right now. 10 minutes. Yeah, right. I know. It was a little longer than that. But you guys also went long in worship, MBJ, so burn. And so we're going to put these discussion questions up. Discuss them for a few moments, okay? Discuss them for a few moments. And are they up? Okay. So get with somebody next to you, discuss them, and try not to get focused on other things. Just talk about these for a few moments.